home, flew into Chattanooga, I just felt strange, So I go walking up down the sidewalk up on the porch to the house there,
Larry Lewis grew up in Rome, Georgia.
And by that time, my mother was at the door.
While he was fighting in Vietnam, his mother moved from Rome to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Went in, we hugged.
He came home to a home he had never seen before.
We sat down, and I really felt uncomfortable, because I didn't know him.
When they were in Vietnam, they called their lives back in America the world.
I've always felt over the years, that I left part of me there.
When they returned to that world, many, likely most of them, needed time to understand how to navigate, how to live in that world again. A world that was never going to truly understand them now.
When I'd gotten home, I went to where I was raised in Rome, Georgia, and met some of my high school friends, but there was one girl that came up and, guys, we were talking and stuff, and she come up and she said, "Oh, Larry," said, "you just got back from Vietnam, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Did you kill anybody?" And it from that point on, it was all gone. I never spoke again, not even to those guys about it. It was probably, when I met you several years ago there, that I actually never spoke that much about it.
Today, I got a story to tell you, all about the battle for Hue and the war in Vietnam. My name is Josh Roe, and this is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This is Chapter 4 of our special series about the battle for Hue. We call this series The Battle That Changed Everything. And we call this chapter, The Truth is Complicated. And that's where we start this story, because one thing that makes telling a story like Hue City challenging is the truth. Because one person can tell you exactly what they did, exactly what they witnessed, and they may be the only person who saw it that way.
When you're getting shot at, a guy can be 5 feet away from you. Y'all looking in the same direction, and he'll see a total different picture than you will.
That's Bill Tant from the Gulf 25 Marines. If you have seen or heard the first 3 episodes, you know about Bill Tant.
That's why the only way to ever really put together a firefight is you get everybody that was involved together. And then you add all these little scraps of information, because what I would see later on, especially this first day, other people didn't see it. And what they saw, of course, I didn't see it because I wasn't where they were at. And we weren't 20, 25 feet apart.
On the first day of the battle, January 31st, 1968, Gulf 25 charged across the Perfume River Bridge and toward the walled city called the Citadel.
First platoon took a left turn, went a couple blocks.
This is Richard Cobb. He and Bill Tant were in the same platoon.
As we were going, I remember it's just kind of surreal.
They had been fighting in the jungles and rice paddies, and here they are, literally fighting for their lives in the middle of a modern city.
Funny thing, there was a movie theater.
Barney Barnes, Gulf 25.
On the right-hand side of that road.
There was a movie theater.
A movie theater.
Had the big marquees.
There was this giant cowboy cutout cardboard on the side of the road.
There is at least one photo from January 31st, 1968 of the theater. That photo was taken by the company radio man Pete Peterson, who took several pictures on the first day in Hue.
And I'm thinking, this is just kind of out of whack here, looking at cowboys drawing their guns on us while we're in a firefight.
In the picture, you can see the cowboy and he's pointing his gun.
It was playing Gone with the Wind.
I remember distinctly it was a Charlton Heston movie.
That was a movie that was playing.
They had a big placard out front of it with his picture on it. It was a Western.
Everybody has said a different movie was playing at that theater. Everybody remembers that differently.
It was Gone with the Wind. What we always argued about, it was a Western was coming on next. Gone with the Wind, I could still see Clark Gable holding, what was her name?
Vivian Lee, I believe.
Yeah, old Clark. And he's going to kill. I can still see that right there next to that door going into that theater. But there was another marquee, or another one of them pictures of the upcoming movie, and it was a Western.
In this book, Way 1968 by Mark Bowden, it says the theater was advertising an Italian Western. The English translation of the title is Massacre Time. Bowden writes the title struck golf company commander Chuck Meadows as, quote, macabre and apt. In that picture I mentioned earlier, you can see the Italian movie being advertised. There are Italian actors in the promotion. And if you were in a firefight, you might think that looked like Charlton Heston. But we also don't know if there was something else outside of the frame of this photo that we're not seeing. So there could be more to this story. What is for certain, Bill Tant and Barney Barnes are certain that they saw what they remember seeing.
Anyway, we agree with one thing. The movie theater was there.
Is that there are details that people do remember differently.
Sure.
The things we don't know for certain certainly add a layer of intrigue around Way City. Life magazine, the March 8th, 1968 issue. I got this one for about $30 off of eBay. In '68, it would have cost me 35 cents. What makes this issue relevant is a photo spread all about the fighting at Way by photojournalist John Olson. There's a famous picture in that spread of a wounded Marine on a tank. That Marine is not identified in the magazine. But back to that book, Way 1968. That Marine is identified as Alvin Burt Grantham. But a New York Times investigation from 2019 suggests that Marine is not Alvin Grantham, but instead PFC James Blaine. In this war and in this battle, there are many facts that are agreed upon, clear to understand and well documented, but also lots of opinions, questions, mysteries, complexities, both during the fight and in all of the years since. During my first conversations with several Marines who I've talked to about Way, one idea that I heard many times is some version of nobody gets the story right. What these veterans remember and understand about what they experienced matters. These things certainly matter to Larry Lewis. But there are also parts of the battle he does not remember. After coming home and feeling like a stranger around his family,
It'd been something like 16 months since I had seen them. And then the change that I had coming back home, and it was like I was talking to strangers.
And discovering he couldn't talk about Vietnam with his old friends. He then spent decades trying to forget he was ever in Vietnam.
So many years, most of us kept it bottled up, Yeah. You couldn't talk to anybody. There's nobody you talk to unless you found another veteran, and then they were kind of reluctant to do it.
Every Marine I've talked to who was there for the battle at Way City has a unique story. Yet there are layers to their experiences that are shared with the others who fought there.
They were prepared, and they were bringing in supplies. They had more ammunition and weapons than we had.
This is Jim Hunter. I went to Kentucky to see him. He told me this is the first time he's ever talked in front of a camera lens about his tour in Vietnam and about Way City.
We took the provincial capital building, and what I remember about that is that, I remember somebody said, now, boy, this is in my mind, I don't know, that President Johnson was tired of looking at that flag every night on CBS News. And they told us, this flag is coming down. We're taking this building today. That's what I remember. Is that true? I have no idea.
Right.
But I've always had that in my mind.
Jim told me at this point in his life, there was just some things about the battle and the war that he too does not remember all that well.
I mean, some things I just am totally blank on, and some things I remember just like right now.
When I got to Jim's house, we went on a drive a couple of towns over to see his friend, Bob Meadows. Were y'all both hotel company but different platoons? Is that right?
Right.
Hotel company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines.
Bob's got a good memory. He remembers everything.
Well, I'm sitting there and I had a can of chili I'd been saving for a special occasion. I said, I'm going to eat this chili.
On our last episode, we told you about Bob Meadows in the fight, February 3rd on the roof of the Way University. There's a picture of Bob on that roof. There are other Marines in the picture. They're crouched down below a low wall for cover. Bob is the only one on his feet. He's running. His right hand is holding his helmet on his head. What do you think when you see that picture of you?
Well, I think I'm just a few seconds away from getting hit.
He told me the story of what happened next.
I'm going to get my rifle. Two of my Marines, PFC Powell and Smith. And they had shot an RPG, believe it or not. It hit the side of the college. And there was a little opening there. And that strap metal come in there and got both them boys. Got both of them. And was trying to get them down. And then I heard somebody hollering, "Ah!" I looked over at my radio man, he was down. And I run to get him, and he's screaming about his ears. And I had got the left thing off the backpack for his radio, had got it off. I was trying to get the right one off so we'd have the radio because I knew we was going to get him out. And boom, and I went down. And that's the last thing I remember.
So now, 4 Marines are down at the same time on the roof of Way University. And the only way to get them off the roof is the same way they got on the roof, a ladder that's missing a few rungs. There's a Marine Corps picture of that ladder. In it, one Marine is helping to lower another down the ladder and off the roof. Bill Purcell from Alpha 11 told me a story about that photo.
We had 6 wounded just from that building. One gun team, Ondo and Milron, they were up on a roof with the gun. They get hit with a rocket.
Alpha 11 was in the university building just before Hotel 25.
They got lowered down. You've probably seen pictures of Marines being lowered off the roof on a rope. That was that.
The Kentucky towns where Bob Meadows and Jim Hunter grew up were about an hour apart from each other. They never met before the war. They don't remember meeting during the war. A Marine Corps company is roughly 150 Marines strong, so it would not be uncommon at all to not know other Marines in different platoons in your company.
We were in the same places,
Right.
but I didn't know him.
One day back in the 1980s, Jim was on a phone call with a hotel company Marine talking about an upcoming reunion.
He said, "Well, you know Bob Meadows?" I said, "No, I don't remember."
They met, and they've been good friends ever since.
I mean, I had it better than Bob. I was just humping ammo. I wasn't carrying a rifle. But it was just like a running gun battle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like a running gun battle. Everything was just wild. Is that what you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody just shooting everything.
When we were there at Bob's house, they start to show me books and photos and keepsakes.
I just picked it up and walked out. I didn't pay for it.
That was back when I first got there.
Then Jim Hunter shows me another photo, the same photo of the ladder, the one that Bill Purcell told me was a picture of 2 Alpha 11 Marines. This is what Jim Hunter told me about that picture.
That's David Wilcox. That's me right there. That's Bob.
Another case of more than one story about one specific moment or aspect about the battle for Way. It would be difficult to verify which Marines are in that photo.
Shoot, 20, 30 years ago.
Bob and Jim were at a reunion.
We was up in the room there and everybody's showing pictures and this and that.
Jim told me the photographer who took that picture was in the room, and then he and Bob see the photo.
I always knew that was me, and he always knew that was him, but we didn't know that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't know that was me, and I didn't know that was him.
So until that very moment, they didn't realize that they had crossed paths during the war.
Pretty neat that together there, but yet we didn't know one another. But now we do.
Right.
It won't go right.
Right here. Bob Meadows was awarded his second of 3 Purple Hearts for his injuries on the roof that day. He was knocked unconscious when he was hit and does not remember how he got off that roof.
I woke up, I was in the hospital at the Nain, and I was laying on a table, and I was still strapped down to the stretcher. And dust was flying off the ceiling because they was mortaring that whole area. And I thought, my God, my mama ain't gonna believe I got killed tied to a stretcher. And this one Navy corpsman, I don't know who the guy was, but he come back in and started getting people off the tables. He just flipped me over on the floor, and there I laid face down on a stretcher. They kept me about 3 or 4 days, about 4 days. And I told this Marine lieutenant come in, he'd check on us. He said, anything you need? I said, sir, I'd like to go back to my unit. He said, well, they got to discharge you first. I said, no. I said, you don't understand. I said, you see that big woman over there, that nurse? I said, it's going to be me or her. One of us is leaving this place. I said, because she keeps telling me I want to take a bath. I don't want to have a bath. Anyway, I got my wish. Next morning, I was walking out the door.
That day Bob Meadows was wounded was an important day in the battle. Another convoy rolled underway on February 3rd. CBS News correspondent John Lawrence was on one of the trucks in the convoy, and he wrote about that in his book, The Cat from Way.
Colonel Cheatham, what's the objective?
The next morning, February 4th, John Lawrence interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Ernie Cheatham, the commander of the 2-5 Marines in Way.
I've got 2 companies here that are just about to clear the next 2 blocks up. I've got one company in this big building here that I guess it's the end of the Way University, and they are going to start firing in support of Foxtrot Company, which will be going up this road here on the left, and attempt to take a couple large wall buildings that are on up about 500 or 600 meters.
Colonel Ernie Cheatham gets a lot of credit, and deservedly so, for being a major catalyst in turning the battle back in favor of the U.S. forces. Our next episode will be released in 2 weeks. Then we'll take a deeper look at 2 themes from what you just saw. The important role Colonel Ernie Cheatham played at the Battle for Way, and a look at the reporting at the Battle of Way and during the Tet Offensive.
So you're hearing a wounded Marine, trying to get him out of harm's way, and there are reporters everywhere?
They're in front of us, and we tell them, finally when we got to them, we had to push several of them away and said, we've got to get him on the chopper because the chopper's there waiting to medevac him out of there,
That's Larry Lewis from Alpha 11. On that morning of February 4th, Alpha 11 was about a block away from Colonel Cheatham and his 2-5 Marines. Every Alpha 11 Marine I talked to for this story remembers this day well. This was the day they lost one of their leaders, a Marine Corps legend, Medal of Honor recipient Sergeant Alfredo Gonzalez. This is part of what Bill Purcell told me he saw that day.
The 4th of February, we started advancing and we went into the Joan of Arc School. Now, to get into the Joan of Arc School, you went through an administration building, right? Small. Then you went through one door, out the back door, got the back door into a courtyard, and the school was there. It was a typical French design square school with the big opening in the middle, all right? And it was like a tunnel that went under the second level of the one side of the east side of the building. On the outside that tunnel, there were columns supporting the edge of the second floor. Between those columns, every 8 feet, there was 3 or 4 feet of sandbags. So we moved down. I moved down as far right as I could go. Opposite us was a 1-story piece of the building where the NVA were, and we're taking a lot of fire. So I got up on the second floor of a stairwell, and I was firing out a window. Sergeant Gonzalez was running back and forth between those columns, and he was firing laws. They were rocket-propelled grenades. And I saw a flash come out of the window that I was firing at, and I knew it was a rocket. So I yelled to my guys, the rocket, get down. So we got down, the rocket arced low and hit G. Didn't kill him at first. I could hear him moaning, calling for help, and I started screaming for the corpsman. Doc Okonski got to him, and he was gone.
Next time on the battle that changed everything, more Alpha 11 Marines remember Sergeant Alfredo Gonzalez. This series is reported, produced, recorded, engineered, and edited by me, Josh Roe. We are releasing this episode on the Marine Corps' 250th birthday, November 10th, 2025. Happy birthday, Marines. I also want to wish a belated happy birthday to a Way City veteran. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs from 2005 to 2007, Marine Corps General Peter Pace. Happy birthday, sir. Most of the information in this series has come directly from the veterans who fought and survived the Battle for Way. But I've also studied many materials to get a better understanding of the battle and the war as a whole. You can find a link to those materials in the show notes of this episode. Our series, The Battle That Changed Everything, is part of our podcast, Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of NewsChannel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. I hope you join me again real soon.